Welcome to this Dominion 6 tutorial series. My name is DasTactic. Welcome to the channel and welcome to this series. I hope it's been helpful. Please consider liking and subscribing if you do find this helpful, or if you sort of do get value from it. It certainly does help with the YouTube algorithm, and certainly any interaction, whether it be through commenting, certainly does help as well. In this episode, we've got a lot to cover. We're going to be covering weapons and armor. I'll just touch on armor a little bit, I think, and then magic items. They're the three different things. Now, there's a lot to cover with weapons. Now, this episode, I'm going to be focusing very much on just the physical weapons themselves. It works in very, very closely with a video that's already out at this stage, which is the leader and unit stats, and it will then sort of work in and make more sense once we actually get into some of the gameplay aspects and we go into the actual combat as well. So that's going to be in a coming video where I talk about the actual combat in detail and how things actually do work. But this will help with, if you have the unit leader and unit stats in mind. I'll talk about it very, very briefly, but I don't want to get too bogged down. So I've been trying to think of the best way to actually try to explain how weapons work in the game. There's two basic types of weapons. No, this is not including magic, by the way. So magic and spells, we've already sort of touched on that in the last episode. What we're going to be touching on here is literally physical weapons, or physical damage that is done by your units. And there's two different types. There's basically ranged attacks, and there are melee attacks. And so if we have a look, for example, at these Moose Riders, we'll then sort of see that these actually have got one of each. They've got a dagger for melee, and they have a short bow for ranged attacks. And so the way that this one would then work is we've got two Moose Riders, actually on this particular one, and then a moose itself, which only has a kick and antlers. And so actually, in this case, I can go through the whole lot with just this one, with one example, actually, in terms of basic damage and basic different types. So, melee is your main type of damage that does get done. And so the way it works is when you have a look at the weapon stats across here, it's talking about length, attack, and damage. And so the length is the length of the weapon. So a dagger at length 0 is extremely small. And so if you can see there, through weapon length, the unit with the longer weapon will be able to repel the enemy when he tries to attack. So if we go up against someone with a dagger of length 1, a short sword, for example, of length 1, or a sword of length 1, they will be able to repel our attacks from the dagger. So they've got a better chance of essentially stopping us from getting an attack. The attack is the actual value to try to get the hit on the actual enemy unit, which is sort of in a bit of a combination of the attack skill that we see through here. And then finally we have the damage in through this other side, which is the potential damage amount. And we have the damage type. In this case, it's piercing damage. I'll explain what these are in just a minute. But they're your basic stats for a melee attack. If we go and click on dagger, or any of these in through here, it's going to bring up the weapon stats for a dagger. And so the basic stats are 2 piercing damage is what a dagger does. Now, it doesn't matter what faction you use. A dagger is a dagger is a dagger. So essentially, it's always going to be the same pretty much. I mean, there are different types of daggers, but generally, if it's a dagger, it's going to be the same stats. Case in point, we'll look at Relais, the Fallen Star, which is a sort of like a Lovecraftian style faction. If we have a look at one of their units, their Star Child, which uses a dagger, and so the dagger in through here is going to have 2, 1 extra attack, 0, 0, made of iron. It's the same stats for the actual dagger. It's just different depending on who's actually wielding it. So back with our Moose Riders, again, 2, 1 extra attack, so it's a little bit easier to get the hit with the dagger. No extra, you don't get any bonus for defense, and the length doesn't actually, it's got 0 length. So that's sort of like just a very quick look at at what happens with melee. For the short bow, we have a different set of stats, even though they still fall into length, attack, and damage. In this case, the length, if we hover over this, is the range, and this is the maximum range in squares in combat. Now, this is important because they can't start aiming until an enemy gets to that particular length, like that range away from where they actually are, and then they'll spend like a turn to fire their arrows at that particular point. In through here, the attack is the to hit, which is your normal attack skill through there, like that's the to hit factor. For a ranged weapon, it's actually the precision, which is actually different again. To hit is used against a specific unit. So if you have a dagger, you are aiming at a specific unit in the tile that you're going to be attacking into. So it's just an attack against one particular unit, and at that point it's a unit versus unit. In this case, precision is how close you can get to the tile that you're aiming at. And so if you've got a low precision like these guys with only precision of 8, it means that you're very likely to miss the tile that you're trying to get. Now that may mean that you hit within 2 or 3 tiles of that tile, and there may be enemies in that tile. There may be friendlies in that tile, in which case you're going to do friendly fire damage. So you have to be very careful of inaccurate ranged units if you are using them where your forces may be fighting at long range from where these guys are firing from. There's a very high likelihood that they're going to cause friendly fire. It's one of these sort of tricky things. Now, there's still aspects around that which we'll talk about in just a minute as well when we talk about the actual armor. But in this case, the precision value for this attack is low. Why is it so low? If we have a look at the short bow, the basic precision, it doesn't add or subtract anything to the precision. Oh, by the way, the damage. Actually, I'll talk about this in just a minute. But I'll just go through these differences. In this case, the precision is low because these guys are mounted. If we have a look at precision, you can see precision 8. -2 because they're mounted on the moose. So that's actually what's actually happening in through there. Again, it's going to be the damage value and then the piercing damage done to it. Now, ranged units or ranged attacks have a different way of calculating damage. So when we have a look at this one, it's the base damage for a short bow is 6. Then half of the wielder's strength is then added to it. And if it's a two-handed weapon, there's another 25% that gets added to the damage on top of that again as well. So when we have a look at this one through here, its actual strength is only 9, but it's actually doing 10 damage. So it's got these. So essentially, it's half of that. Half of 9, say 4, and then 25% again is added because it's a two-handed weapon. And so we're looking at what's that? It ends up basically only being a damage of 10. Now, in the hands of a stronger unit with more, something with more strength, it's going to cause more damage because they can draw the strings back much better than these little goblins. So these are just tiny little goblins. These are size 2. Each of these little goblin units. Now, the default damage, if we have a look at the daggers, there's no extra. There's a 2 hit factor that's coming into this particular one. You can get some units that allow you to almost like parry or defend a little bit better than what you'd expect. Length I'll talk about in just a minute, but we'll get back to that one in just when we look at the giants. But it then comes down to essentially it's the strength of the unit. So this is 9 plus the damage value in through here of 2. And so if we look at damage, the damage value plus the unit strength determines the amount of damage done with the attack. That's your basic way of applying damage to melee attacks. That's sort of what that tends to happen. What happens with the different types? So let's just now talk about those. We've sort of covered the basics of melee and ranged. So when we go in and have a look at this one through here, piercing damage, it reduces the armor of the target is reduced by 15%. If they were firing against themselves, they've only got protection of 8, which is fairly low. And so both of these do piercing damage, which means that it does reduce the protection value of the enemy by 15%, so just by a small amount. So their protection would be around about, say, 7 rather than 8 if they were firing against themselves. And so that's one type of damage, is piercing damage. Essentially what it is the damage is sort of like a different die rolls, but it's essentially the damage roll against the protection roll to see sort of what the potential damage is. In this case, like if they were both full rolls, there would only be if it was down to 7 because of the piercing damage, there'd be 4 points of damage that would be then applied rather than just the 3, because the piercing damage does reduce the armor by 15%. So it just before the protection roll goes in, that would then be reduced. Let's have a look at some of the other things. If we have a look at the moose itself, this moose has got an interesting thing. It's got 2 different types of attacks. It's got antlers and kick. The kick does blunt damage. So blunt damage on head hits, damage is increased by 25% before armor is deducted. And so with the kick, if we have a look at this one through here, it's just got no extras in through there. It's literally is just going to be the strength. 16 applied to what it does do there with blunt damage. Now, when you're talking about giants, they have a better chance of hitting the heads of units, and so quite often large creatures that do actually have blunt damage will be able to do more damage, over time than sort of human-sized or smaller units. And so there is actually a factor that actually does rate the head hits higher for larger units. This is a size 6 unit. The other thing is the antlers, so it can actually attack with the antlers, and these do a different type of damage. This one here is length of, the attack is -1, so it's actually got less chance to actually get the hit, but it's got length of 1, so it can actually use these to essentially to repel the enemy. Like if an enemy is coming up with daggers and it's got a length 1, it can repel them with the antlers and use the antlers. But there's no real bonuses in through here. We'll have a look at a few other examples in just a minute. But this one does slash damage, and so slash damage is probably one of the most basic types. And so slash damage is increased by 25% after armor protection has been deducted. So slash damage is more likely to chop off body parts. And so in this case, 16 damage, and you can see there it's only got 6 protection. So let's just say it was doing 10 damage. If the die roll sort of ended up that way, the damage would be then increased by 25%. So instead of doing 10, it would do 12 because of the slash damage. So they're the 3 different mundane types. If we just go back out and have a look at some of the others. So, for example, an axe is slash damage, but there's a few little extra things with an axe. It's not very good at defense. It does have length 1, but it does a lot of base damage, 8. Add that to our strength, 21, we end up with 29 potential damage, which is a lot of damage. So axes do more damage, but reduce your chance to dodge out of the way. So you actually lose dodge by wielding an axe. If we have a look at a sword, for example, back in through here, this is a broadsword. In this case, it does 28 damage, so still a lot of damage, but it doesn't actually impact. This one helps with the 2 hit, it helps with the defense, it's length of 1, and it does 6, so it doesn't do as much as the base damage of an axe, but you do get bonuses with attack and defense, which is actually can be very, very important. So it means that your basic defense skill will go up by wielding a broadsword. So defense in through this side, we can sort of see there, weapon defense modifiers +1. In the attack skill, it should be the basic. It's got the 12 in through there. That should be added. Not sure why that's not being added in there actually. Anyway, that's oh, hang on, there it is there. It's showing it there. Attack value for this attack is 13. So that's just the basic attack value through that side. So that's sort of how these are working in very, very basic terms. If we have a look, for example, at the spearman, again, it's going to be pierce damage. We're looking at a spear which has got a length of 3, base damage of 3, so even less damage in base damage. But the difference here is that the length can be then used to repel. And so you see there at the bottom there, it sort of says it's good to have a longer weapon than your opponent. The unit with a longer weapon will be able to repel the enemy when he tries to attack. And so I won't read through the rest of that one. You can have a read through that if you've got the game. But the other thing we have at that, when we look at the very, very bottom, the last sentence, units with size 4+ will receive a 1-point length bonus to any weapon that has length 1 or more. That's why we're looking at length 3 here, but in the hands of a size 6 giant, it's now length 4. And so if it comes up against an enemy with a normal, with a spear as well, that's not a giant himself, they're going to have the advantage of being able to push them away with their spears before the others can get close. Now, there are some interesting exceptions in the game, like we actually have different types of units that actually have, natively have better weapons. Like if we go, for example, across, I think it's Ulm. If we have a look at Ulm, Ulm has got some of these soldiers in through here, pikeneers. And these use pikes at length 5. The actual length itself is 5. The defense is lower because they're cumbersome. It's still a 2-handed weapon, so it adds to 25% bonus to the damage. But you can see there the damage is nowhere near as good as what other ones are. But these guys are used to stop cavalry charges, things like this. They're there to repel the other units because of this extreme length. And so length is quite important in this instance because they really do they can repel a lot. This guy here, for example, Lord Guardian, the halberd is only going to have a length of 3. It does better different bits and pieces in through here, but this one is actually essentially a length 3 weapon. If that was in the hands of a giant, it would be length 4. Now, this actually brings up another interesting aspect, is that this one's actually got a combined, does both slash damage and piercing damage, these halberds. And so this is quite interesting. If we go back and have a look at the pikes, do they do the same? No, they're only pierce. There's a halberd there. And so these are also got the slash and pierce damage. Now, this also then shows the other type, or another type of damage that is then done. And the damage is magic damage. So you can actually have magic damage done. And so quite often, if you have a look at the black halberds, you then sort of see, okay, it does slash damage, pierce damage, and magic damage. The base damage factor of a black halberd is 12, and these are pretty much just unique to Ulm. It's a two-handed weapon, so there's even more damage that then comes through. It adds to the attack, it's got good defense values, it's got a length of 3, and the extra effect, sort of like in conjunction with the magic attack, is the Bane of Heresy, and it then goes through that it does fatigue damage when it actually goes through. And this aspect is armor piercing, so it can get through the armor a little bit better. The strength of the wielder is not added to this particular Bane of Heresy, so if the basic damage hit goes in, then this is actually an extra attack that comes from the magical attack. So this is like a fourth extra little bonus to what we're seeing through here. Only affects gods and sacred units. So if you're playing against sacred units, these guys are great against those. Area of effect 1. So this attack will affect everyone inside the area of effect. This is what I was saying before about the 2 hit. If in melee you are attacking a single unit, you might have, if you're going up against hobbits or hobyars in the game, there might be 5 of them in a square attacking you. But when you attack with a standard sword, you are attacking one of those 5, not all 5, except if you have an area of effect attack, which will then do extras. So this can be quite important if there's something like happening in through here with this fatigue damage. So if you're going up against a unit or a group of units, like if let's just say there are hobyars or hobbit type units that they've got sacred abilities, then these guys are going to be extremely effective because they're going to very quickly fatigue the other, like it won't do actual physical damage, just fatigue damage against those units and make them essentially really, really tired really, really quickly by using this particular weapon. Now, there's all sorts of other magical attacks that do go in. Some of them don't do any extra stuff. Like you can see there, the base damage is 27 for the hit against one unit, but then it does the fatigue damage against everyone in that particular square. And so if we go back out and have a look at maybe some of the others and just have a quick look and see what some of them have got, like if we go down into Relay through here, which is the Fallen Star, these are sort of like Eldritch style or Lovecraftian style units. Some of their units, for example, are just going to have like just a magic damage. Now, why would you want a magic damage? If I click on Life Drain, it's armor piercing, and it does do life drain. So often it will be something special about what it does go and do. Sometimes it won't be magic, but sometimes there's protection against normal weapons, and so you need to have magic weapons to be able to get through and do the damage. In this case, magic attacks, like the weapons, will actually get through those basic sort of protections that protect against normal sort of weapon attacks. In this case, though, it's armor piercing and also has life drain. Again, it's worth actually having a look to see what you've actually got. Some of these, like this is more like a ranged thing. This is the maximum range in squares, so range 100 for the Mind Blast, which is not a spell, even though it looks like a spell. The attack, this is a precision value for the attack. It doesn't miss. So the Mind Blast hits every single time, and this one does all sorts of different things, different sorts of damage to the actual to the enemy that's actually that's on the receiving end of these mind blasts. So interesting the way it sort of does then go and work. So anyway, it does sort of special types of damage based on what we're seeing through this other side. So that's the essentially the I guess, well, that's 4 of the different types. The last type is actually something, I think this one here has got it, which is just nothing. This one, it's using pincers. So it's not really slash damage, it's not really piercing damage, it's not blunt damage, maybe a combination of all 3 to a degree, but it's pincers. And so these it's literally the strength added to the damage. So one for a basic crab, it's going to do 1 damage. For one of these crab hybrids, it's going to do 17 plus 1. So we're going to get the 17 added on to the 1 to give us the 8 damage factor. But these are not very good. The attack value is only 8. So the chances of it hitting is lowish for it to be able to then get, at least, to even get the attack to go in. So that's your basic weapons, I guess, just to sort of go through those. Now, the other thing to consider is that we've seen two-handed weapons, one-handed weapons. I'll just go back to our Jotunheim. I sort of want to keep the Jotunheim as our central core about what we're doing in this series, simply just so that you've got a point of reference that doesn't seem wildly different every time you look at it. In this case, these guys, their weapons don't change. Anyone that's just a basic unit, if I go and click on any of these, there's no ability to sort of change what they do. So their kit is their kit. And so these ones here, for example, have got full leather armor, shielding, and reinforced leather. Now, we did go through the stats and cover this a little bit back in the leader and unit stats area, where this essentially adds up. The protection values add up and give you a protection amount. If we click on protection, we're then going to sort of see the different amounts that are being applied across the actual unit itself, like basic natural protection of 5, armor value of 9, back and through this other different bits and pieces. Total protection 13 for the head and the body. So that's the final protection value. And so in this case, we then sort of see that we've got like 9s in through there for the armor, for the cap. So they're the 2 9s that we saw. And the shield is separate again. So the shield actually does. It's got the so protection is used to reduce the amount of damage from enemy blows. A shield only reduces damage if the enemy gets a shield hit. So if they attack you and hit the shield does much better protection than hitting your armor, which makes perfect sense, of course. The shield overall does reduce the defense. It does have a parry skill. So shields are actually a little bit different again in terms of armor. So the parry value is used to deflect incoming attacks with a shield. An attack that would hit the target's normal defense value but miss if the target added the parry value to its defense will hit the shield. And so it uses that as a sort of like an extra weight to what's actually happening to see if it's going to hit the person or the shield. So the higher the parry value, the better protection they're going to have. And so some shields have got a very large. In this case, it's just a normal shield. I think it sort of shows. Let's see if I can find another one that's going to have, like, again, if we look at Ulm, that's probably going to show bigger shields. So this is a tower shield of Ulm, which actually has got parry 7. So, and it's got very high protection with these particular shields. The defense to be able to dodge by wielding this shield takes 2 off the defense factor. The encumbrance goes up, so these are hard to drag around. These are magic weapons, so this piece of armor is magic. Magic shields are less likely to break from hard blows, and all types of magic armor is much more resistant to hostile magic that tries to destroy it. And this is why sort of magic attacks, magic weapons sort of do. They do different things. But in this case, this is very high parry. There'll be other types of shields as well, if I can find one. Yeah, just looking at Agartha, the golems, and we have a look, for example, this guy here is using a buckler, which is a smaller shield. And so in this case, the protection is lower, the parry is lower, so it doesn't do quite as much. So it's more difficult to sort of get the shield hit is less likely than, for example, a tower shield. I hope that makes sense, but that's sort of how it all sort of works. I didn't want to go into too much detail because we'll be covering that a little bit in the combat episode as well. But essentially, that's sort of what happens with these units. Now, the next thing we're going to be talking about, that's in very basic terms how armor works. I don't want to spend too much detail with that one. But when we look at the actual commanders, all of the commanders will tend to have a group of equipment that they can actually then go and attach to themselves. And so some of these will replace the armor that they may actually have, and some of them will just be additional to it. So for example, this unit here, the Thrymsgode, can only be recruited at the capital. This one here, you can see it's only got a chainmail hauberk, which does 15 protection damage, and it's got a 2-handed battle axe. So it's a 2-handed weapon, base damage of 9 attack and through this side, made of iron. It's not a magical attack. It does do other things around it, like it does actually have like a chill factor. So the creature is surrounded by an unnatural cold. The cold is most intense during snowy weather and in cold provinces. And so this will actually affect anyone that's close to it. It does also have ice protection as well. So there's different things that these different units have. But in this case, this particular unit is using a battle axe, two-handed. It can't use a shield. It doesn't have anything on its head, and it's using a chainmail hauberk in this case. So the chainmail hauberk is just iron. It's basically just iron. So its dodge factor goes down. Its encumbrance goes up a little bit. It does have a map movement penalty, so it's slow moving around on the actual maps. It's made of iron. So it's a mundane chainmail hauberk, but it still does give a lot of protection. If we have a look at the actual protection factors, we can then sort of see that there's no protection values for the head. We have an armor value overall of 12 when we sort of combine the 15 body and 0 for the head of 12. And then we have a natural protection of 6, which is basically its skin. Like it's a giant, so it's going to have thick skin. And so essentially the total protection, when we add this to it, we have a protection for the head of 6. So if a head shot is going to only protect at 6, a body shot is going to protect at 19. Now you may be thinking, okay, look, the body shot I can live with. Or do we actually start to sort of tweak what happens with this unit and make these into powerful units? These are expensive units, 340 gold and 33 resources, but we could build this into what's called a thug or a super combatant. They're two different terms that we'll talk about at some point in this series, where we go into sort of trying to plan ahead a little bit as to how we can make use of particular types of units. In this case, and I won't go into the specifics of it, but we may think, okay, look, I can really dramatically improve the protection by giving him a shield and by giving him a helmet and you know, and other sorts of things as well. Like I've got different slots. So battle axe, for example, two-handed weapon. It means that the battle axe is being controlled by the hand and also this hand. So both hands are being used to do this. If we gave him a shield, the shield would appear in there, and so that would be what he would wield, but he wouldn't wield any weapon at all. So if we make a shield for him, we would need to also make a one-handed weapon for him as well. So I hope that makes sense. Like if he's wielding a battle axe and we give him a shield in here, the shield will appear in the armor and will impact his protection, but he'll drop the battle axe and he'll then just be using a fist, which will just do a little bit of blunt damage. It'll still be 24, but it won't be anywhere near as good as as using an actual axe or some sort of weapon. So we can start to plan ahead with these sorts of units and think this unit may be viable to change what its loadout is, to make use of the fact that we could actually have a much better protection, like a helmet, for example. The helmet's going to go on the head slot, so head no magic item. In this case, that one there would end up with we don't have any conflict at all there, so we can definitely get helmets for it. If we use the bow, so like his precision is 12. He's got very, very high precision. So giving this character a bow would actually be fairly cool as well. And we saw there one of the changes, I think, with Dom 6, I think it came in only in Dom 6, is that you can actually have them as archer type units until they go into melee sort of area. So you can set this up to be able to fight ranged and then fight melee. So again, this game is becoming much more intricate. The body slot into here is where this one goes. The chainmail hauberk is protection for the body, and so it goes and uses the body slot. And then we've got no magic items in through there. This is where we put magic items. We also have a feat. We don't have any conflict at all there. But if we put anything on the body, it's going to then override the chainmail hauberk. And so we may think, like, I'm happy enough with the hauberk. I think the encumbrance isn't going to really worry him too much. But you may decide, hey, look, I need to get something really light, but still with high protection, magical, to actually then deck out this particular character. You've got 2 miscellaneous slots in through there as well. So these are where you then get your various items for the units. Now, in this particular game, I've only just started, so I don't actually have any items to give them, but I'll show you how these are created. Now I just ran a turn forward just so I can get myself a magic user. If we have a look at one of these other guys, for example, if I go and not right click, if I go and click down the bottom through here, we're going to see there's nothing to do with items or anything along these sorts of lines. If I go to a magic user who has got magic paths and then go and click down through here, you'll see that we've got forged magic items. And if we go and do that, we'll essentially go in and start to have whatever's available to us. Now, in this case, we haven't done the research. So let's have a quick look at the research. We've done this before in the last episode. If we go across into our research, we really need to, we've got construction 1, but we need to get to construction 2 essentially before we can start to really sort of build anything. But we can still check things out and plan things. So getting construction, we've got like a whole lot of different levels of construction, for example, that then open up the various magic items. Let's just still go and have a look at this one as well. Forge magic items in through here. So there may be things like trinkets. This is a hardwood club. We cannot forge this item. There will be a cost of resources, but in this case, if we go and click on it, we don't have enough magic gems to forge that item, so we'd need to get more magic gems. But we can right click on it and see what it would then go and do. So this is a single-handed weapon. It's a nature magic level 1 weapon, and it costs 5 nature gems to be able to then go and wield it. This one here just does 5 blunt damage, so it's a blunt damage on head hits. It's going to do the bit of damage in through there. It boosts the attack defense. It's length of 1. In the hands of a giant, it's going to be length 2, and it does do magic damage as well. So it's just going to bypass this club. It has been enchanted with nature magic to make it extraordinarily sturdy and is at least as effective as a proper iron mace. And so this is a fairly basic sort of weapon, but it does do magic damage. And so against certain units, that's going to be effective. And so you may find something where you may have a need for that one. Two-handed weapons, we can't forge any of those at this stage. No bows. We do actually have 1 shield, which again we can't really do at this stage. This one also requires 5 nature gems. This one here has got protection of 13, so it's just going to be a basic sort of shield. It's made from hides of exceptional bulls. The shield is not as sturdy as good iron shield, but it's very light and doesn't encumber the bearer. So if we wanted to build a shield, we could certainly build it out of this one through here. Helmets, can't do any of those just yet. We can get the Berserker pelt, and so this one here does give, so the type of armor, so it gives +4 hit points, gives Berserker, so this unit is capable of going Berserk if wounded, so that one sort of then adds other aspects to what they then do. Instant Berserk, so this unit will go Berserk instantly whenever there is a battle. This ability doesn't work on most mounted units, and so this one, if we made this one for it, our actual overall body protection, when we're looking at that other example, would actually reduce by quite a bit. So this would not be a good example for us to go and replace what we had with this particular armor, unless there were other benefits. So the Wolf Pelt will enrage its wearer, increasing his strength and battle prowess, but reducing his defense. And so it's sort of one of these things where this is actually not good for us. Boots, we've got a couple of boots in there, boots of long strides, makes the map movement faster. His swiftness, bonus to combat movement speed, so we can actually move faster in combat. And again, going to cost more nature in through there. Silent boots, so gives stealth factors. If we need him to be sneaking through territory, we may give him that one. Requires glamour. We've got a little bit of glamour. We've got 2 glamour gems at this instance. Then we actually have miscellaneous back in through here. At this stage, Skull Talisman, so we can command 5 undead with this one through here. Retinue, it will create 1 long dead to just go and help us, which is sort of like a skeleton warrior. Requires death magic. This one here is a snake ring, which will give poison touch. So this ring gives the wielder almost total immunity to poisons and the ability to poison enemies by touching them. And so essentially it's a spell that is sort of then is attached to it. It's not actually it's a spell that we would then have to script. If you look at my last episode on the spell schools and how they sort of then go and work, and then we have a slave collar where the morale goes up, the assassin's patience goes up as well, and again you can sort of hover over these things to get a bit of a feel or read them in through here. But anyway, you get the idea. These are the magic, and then you do actually have the saddles and bardings. Can't do any of those just yet. And then the special artifacts over through here. So there's no yearning artifacts left, or not yet. That will be more late game, so I won't really cover that at this instance. But these ultimately end up being things like the Rings of Power from Lord of the Rings, or super magical items that everyone actually wants. And so these become major desire for what we're sort of doing in through there. So with the actual forging of these different sorts of things, by the way, there is actually this is monthly forging. I did show this in one of the other episodes. I think it might have been actually the last one, episode 8, or the Spell Schools one. May have been that one through there. But you can actually just have it if you need something all the time. Like if you're building a group of thugs and you might need sort of like 6 or 7 or 8 thugs decked out, as in combatants who are very, very strong, that may or may not work with armies. They can sort of work on their own just because of the equipment that they've got. You may decide, okay, I'm going to do monthly forging of these particular items. And so we don't have enough to do it in just here right now. But that would then allow us to just forge month after month after month one of these items. Now, there's more we can do here. Like, we're not seeing very much at all. This has been a very, very poor example of what we could do to deck out one of those units. But let's actually now just go back and do a very quick summary of the different unit that we were looking at. I'll just press R. We were looking at this Thrimsgoad in through this other side, with a view to deck him out. We know that the Chainmail Hauberk is actually good enough. We probably don't really need to replace that one there. But we could certainly give him a one-handed weapon, plus a shield, plus a helmet, plus boots. So that may be, and plus some miscellaneous items. Now, if we wanted to plan ahead, what do we want? How do we want to actually attack this? And what's the possibilities for us? Now, when we have a look at, for example, at the different types of units that are likely to be able to actually forge different things for him, our most common one is likely to be the Vati Hag, which will actually only be able to have like either astral, death, nature, glamour, or blood magic, or the Gaija, which is going to be more common, where we know that we're always going to get death, glamour, and blood magic, and then the potential of, again, those other ones as well. So we will end up with maybe some death 2, glamour 2, blood 2 type units. Let's just use that as an example. So that way we'll keep it relatively simple. We also have this one as well that also then has other abilities where it's going to have like a lot of other additions. But we're not seeing sort of like the earth magic. We're not looking at fire magic. So all of those things really aren't going to be doable for us with our particular faction. But we can certainly get these. Now, if we want to plan, what do we do for this unit to try to make him more effective? Let's also think, let's try to do it fairly early on in the game. So let's not go out, say, beyond the second level of the construction. So if we go back in and have another look at this one again. So forge magic items in through this other side. If I now press the question mark, there's a whole lot of different things we have when we're in this particular screen. Now, to be honest, I find the categories, it's just as easy just to select those and, rather than actually using keyboard shortcuts for that one. But you do actually have filters, which we'll talk about in just a minute, where you can sort of go through and where you've got there's some really interesting, just some great additions that have been added to this one. So view the magic path boosting items only. We'll have a look at that because that's actually really, really important. I should have shown that again in the last episode with Spell Schools. This is actually such a useful keyboard command, the O, the 0. Not the O, sorry, not the 0, the O. Oh, off for orange. And then miscellaneous down through here. Toggle the monthly forging. I was trying to do this in the last episode and I screwed it up. I thought it was Control click, but it was actually just M to toggle the monthly forging on or off when you're doing it. But Control A, view all items. This is actually what we want to have a look at. So we can also tab to mark the national items, the items that only we can actually cast, or that are specific to the ice giants. And then we got the exit screen. So these miscellaneous are really, really quite useful. So let's just go back in and go Control A. We're now looking at all the items. Now, if we press Tab again, we're not seeing anything that's specific to our faction. It's not highlighting anything. I'll just go and just press question mark and through there again. And so again, tab was marked the national items. So we're now looking at all of the things that are coming up. Now, if we have a look, for example, let's just say we're going to look at death magic. Now, D is going to sort of limit it to death magic items. It's a bit hard to see it because we haven't actually done this one yet. But we can then sort of see the trinkets for death magic. There's nothing much in there, but we then can actually have a look through at the different sorts of death magic one-handed items that are available to us. And so if we just use it from, say, lesser magic and greater magic, There may be something in here, like for example, the Shadow Brand does magic damage. It's going to cost me 10 magic gems and 5 earth gems. Now, this one requires earth magic. I don't have the ability to do earth magic, so that one's out of the equation. The Star of Darkness is a death magic level 1. I can certainly do that one. It's going to cost me 5 death gems to do it. This one here, the Star of Darkness, does blunt damage, it does piercing damage, it does magic damage as well, and its basic damage value is 10. Attack of 2, defense of 1, length of 1, extra effect on damage is causing fatigue. And so this one here, when it does hit, it causes fatigue to the enemy unit. It's armor negating for the fatigue, so the fatigue that goes through. So this, been thinking, this one for what we're looking at looks pretty damn good. We also have a Bane Blade in through this side as well. We've got like better defense, better attack. It does do magical damage. Again, it's a magical sword. Extra effect on damage is decay. This one's probably even better actually in one sense, and this one's easier for us to go and get hold of. We can get this one as soon as we get to the lesser magic items at level 2 of construction. And so that one would be a good one to aim for decking out our unit. If we put a one-handed sword in there, we need to have a looking at the shields. Now, it's only got the lantern shield in through here is very powerful. This is only, again, we're looking at only things that actually are using death magic in this case. But so let's just go and press either D to turn them off, or we could press space as well. Like if I now go and have a bit of a look, we've got the black steel tower shields, the kite shields, the enchanted shields. So some of these, for example, this is astral. Again, we're likely to get glamour. So if we press G, so we actually have a lucky coin in the shields. So this one gives luck, and so it's and so this one may be a good one for us to get as well. So glamour magic level 2, and so it's going to cost. So if we can get a glamour level 2 mage, we're going to then be able to cast this one, and this will be a good one to aim for. With getting more of those. The greater magic items, we've got the Mirror of Lost Battles as a glamour manipulator. Probably not so much good for us, though it does have a lot of protection. The defense goes down, the parry is extremely high. The encumbrance is relatively high though as well. So you start to evaluate these different sorts of things. This one here, the encumbrance is 0. The parry is good enough. The protection is of 19 is good, but it does give us luck. And so the buckler of polished silver is inscribed on the surface of the face of an unknown statesman, grinning at some private joke. The figure on the surface is reputed to be the lover of Lady of Luck, and his face makes the bearer pleasant in the eyes of the lady. So essentially, it's just going to be it's going to be applying luck to the actual unit. So you end up with once it gets applied, that's just going to be a buff to that particular unit. If we just go and press space again, we just go and get all of them. So by all means, have a bit of a look through when you're trying to plan what you want, depending on what you end up getting. Like, for example, this one here, the Vine Shield, is often very, very commonly used. It requires a Nature Level 2 mage, which we don't really have access to. We may jag it with one of the bigger mages that we end up getting, but this one actually entangles everyone in around it, so it makes it easier for the unit to hit things because it entangles the enemies. The helmets we want to have a bit of a look at as well. And so again, if we go and have a look at death magic, like we have the greater magic levels, so we've got like the horror helmet, which is death magic level 2, which we should be able to get that one. Increases fear, which makes people want to run and gives a lot of protection to the head. So that may be something we aim for. So you get the idea, as you sort of come through, we're not going to worry about the actual armor, although there's a lot there for us to choose from, because the armor we have is good enough. The boots, we may again have a look through and see what boots would become available that we may want for our unit. Like for example, Boots of the Behemoth is going to give trample to what this unit can do, which allows him to then sort of charge through smaller enemies and cause a lot of damage to them. So this is sort of ideal for these sort of giants to be able to use these sorts of boots. It is heavy though, so we have to be careful of that one. So it can't be transported, but but we're talking about a giant anyway, so that may be something we do. There's going to be all sorts of different boots in here. Boots of giant strength. The strength goes up by +5. It's not so dramatic for a giant because the giants already have so much more strength anyway. But there's, again, you just pick and choose, try to plan what you're going to then do. There's heaps of miscellaneous items to then go and pick from. Again, if we press D, like we don't have that many death ones, but we may choose some of these death these death ones through here, this one gives extra experience, 3 per month. It may be worth getting one of those at some point. Like it's but anyway, I'm not going to go through the specifics, but this is sort of how you would then go through. Like at the moment, we need to just go and do research to sort of get to those areas. But you have a plan in mind to then go and deck out those higher level units with the like just always check what you're replacing. So that's why the chainmail hauberk is actually pretty damn good. The battle axe through here is actually good, but we can give him better protection if we needed to by changing these two and actually replacing the battle axe with these two in through here. Other examples, I'm just trying to think. Some of the things you just will not change. This is why Armour is a good one. If we go and have a look again at the Pretenders of the World and just go to Armour, you'll find that so many of these guys have actually really, really decked out. So this one here has got the full helmet of Ulm, the full plate of Ulm, and the kite shield of Ulm, giving incredible protection. You don't need a helmet, you don't need the actual shield, and you don't need the armour when you've got these sorts of units. These are strong enough anyway with what they end up doing. You've got the lance and the Morning Star, again, does really, really good damage. So these you don't really need to deck out. Maybe you'd have a look at some miscellaneous items in through here as well. Just have a look to see if they're worth doing. Maybe you look at the boots as well and just see if they're worth putting anything on there. Although you are riding a mount, which can actually have some barding, but this is really where these sorts of units you probably wouldn't bother to actually try to make them into thug units by getting them magic items. And I think most of the units from Ulm are sort of in that sort of category where it's hardly worth it. Like this one here, the black halberd. Why would you get rid of that and replace that, even though it's a two-handed weapon? He already has incredible protection with his full plate armor and the full helmet. So he doesn't have a shield because he's using a two-handed weapon, but his overall protection is incredibly high. And so in this case, he's not going to take a real lot of damage, and his weapon is already magical anyway. So you wouldn't bother replacing that one. So this is an example where you wouldn't deck that one out. But when we were looking at before with our units, if we just go back into here, this unit does have some real areas where we could enhance it. So this is where the more you play the game, the more you'll start to look at these units and think, Iron Cap, Shield, Chainmail Hauberk, it's all reasonable. It's not bad. It does have a broadsword, which does a fair bit of damage. You may not even want to waste, trying to sort of deck this one out. But if you wanted to, you can just look through the magic items, just using that Control A, to then sort of have a look at all of them and plan ahead a little bit and figure out what you need. What magic do you need to be able to get there? The last thing I want to show with this actually is to show, let's just say, for example, we've got this one's a 1 death, 1 nature, 1 glamour, and 1 blood in through here is what we actually have with this particular unit. So if we have a look at her, for example, that's the magic abilities that she actually has. So Death Mage level 1, Nature Mage level 1, Glamour Mage level 1, and Blood Mage level 1. Now, one of the biggest things you want to do for decking out your mages is to give them different items as well that will then give them the boosts to start to boost these up, because this is quite important. And so if we go back in and have a look at the Forge Magic item in through here, we'll then just go ahead and press Control A and just open all of these up. And again, if I just press the question mark, you'll see it's got down through here, View Magic Path Boosting Items Only. So if I just go and press O, I'm only seeing items that will then go and boost the abilities of the different units. Now I can go and also then just go and say, okay, that's O and D. What's going to then sort of, no, that one's not going to do it, sorry, that's going to override the O. So I'll just do the O in through here. But each one of these may have like a different boost. For example, the Thistle Mace is one that you really want to get early if you've got Nature Mages. Sorry, that's not going to show it there. But this one boosts your Nature Magic by level 1. But you need to have a Nature Mage level 2 to be able to cast it. And so this can be very difficult for a faction like ours, where we don't have much chance of getting a Nature Magic level 2 mage unless I go and get a high level mage that happens to get lucky and get 2 lots of Nature Mage. And I'll just show what I mean by that. I think I'm maybe sort of going a bit overboard with this one, but let's just go back into here, because this is important to understand how things work. When I right click on this one, No nature in through there, but there is a chance. There's a 100% chance she's gonna pick up nature as a 1 in 5. So there's a 20% chance every time I bring one of these mages in that it will be a nature 1 mage. And then that's exactly what we got. In through here, we ended up with that extra one was the nature that came in. And so we ended up getting that particular mage. If we go back in and go back into recruitment again, then have a look at the Janvidja, which is actually 500 gold, very expensive. Nature is not here by default, but we actually have a whole lot of other abilities where we've got 3 other choices where we may get lucky and actually pick up a nature twice or even 3 times potentially, but the chances of jagging that is very, very remote. Like it's a 1 in 5 chance to get a nature level 1. It's a 1 in 25, multiply that by 25 again, of getting a nature level 2. Then it's going to be a 1 in 125 to get a nature level 3, and then you've only got a 10% chance of jagging one of these anyway, and only another 2% essentially back in through there to get a nature level 4, which would be dramatically, it would be astronomically small amount to get a nature level 4. What are your chances of one? It means that you would have to basically bring in to try to get to get the odds to sort of make it even enough so you end up with a nature level 2 mage. Would be 25 of these mages coming in before you got a nature level 2, which is really, really unlikely. And so I said in the last episode that what you may do with a mage like this one would be to go through and go to empowerment and empower that one in nature, which is going to cost 30 nature gems, just so you get the nature level 2. And then with a nature level 2 mage, and through here, come back through into the Forge Magic items. Just go again, Control A to open up all of them. The O just to sort of go to the boosters. And then the Thistle Mace, you've then got your nature mage level 2. They can then go and build this to give a nature level 3, so she goes up by an extra number 1. And these do make a big difference in the game, by the way. But also, that mage can then start to, when every time you get 10 nature gems, grab another one of these and boost another nature mage that you have. And so you can end up essentially, by investing in 30 nature gems, you can end up sort of getting like a boost into nature magic in a bigger way with what you're actually then going to be doing. So these are not typically used as weapons. These are typically used just to boost. But this ability to find the boostable weapons hasn't been in the game before, and this is very, very powerful, particularly if you're looking at lesser and greater magic items. You will get to the very powerful magic items as well, but this is blood magic goes up a little bit and through here. The doubles in through here, we're looking at death magic goes up by +1. This one just requires a death magic level, mage level 2. Now this is actually 1 in every 5 mages that we get that are just the standard Geiges are going to be a death mage, by the odds. If we did get one of those high level mages, there's a very good chance we're going to end up with a death mage level 2. They can then boost the magic levels again back through there, but this is a 2-handed weapon, so we can only have one of those in through there. There's nothing in there. The ranged weapons don't boost. This one does actually have an Immaculate Shield, which boosts the priest level up in through there. So you end up with a priest level of +1, which is not like this is unique. This sort of tends to be these sort of weapons or these sorts of units down through here. Some of these, that's fire. This is a hard one because you need to have a fire mage level 4 before you can even build this. And it's very hard to boost fire unless you actually have a very, very strong fire mage to start with. We don't have any fire at all, so that's completely out of our area. This is air magic. Again, you need to have a very high level mage to boost air in this instance. And Gossamer Veil, which requires a glamour magic mage level 3. Now we possibly would get there with our high level mages to be able to then go and get this one to then boost glamour magic a little bit up that way. But it's so cool to be able to see this one here because it does allow you to then start to push things. This is going to be for water. You need to have a water mage level 3. So you can start to plan ahead a little bit when you're trying to build your faction. Like if you are trying to sort of really plan ahead a little bit, think about what you want to be boosting in, and what you need as your base, because it may be that you use your pretender god to actually do this for you. In fact, this one here, this is Armour of Twisting Thorns, requires a blood magic mage level 3 and a Nature Mage level 2 to then be able to go and boost this one, Nature by +1 and Blood Magic by +1, which is fairly cool, actually. So that's actually the Armour of Twisting Thorns. That one boosts that one, which would then allow essentially whoever cast it, if it was your pretender, if you had a Blood Mage God that had these 2 stats in it, you would then be able to boost it even higher to then be able to get other things. Even just coming in with Nature Magic level 2, into the actual game is going to give you the ability to get those Thistle Maces and then boost the other things that way. This is Armour, so you could actually boost your Nature and your Blood Magic here, and then get your Nature boosted yet again with the Thistle Mace. And what spells is that going to open up? If you have a look at your spells and then sort by nature, you're going to be able to figure out, okay, yep, I can reach that spell by doing it that way. So magic items are incredibly rich in detail. Earth boots are an easy. Earth boots are an easy way. You only need to have an Earth Mage level 2, which we don't have any Earth Magic at all. But Earth Mage level 2 to boost your Earth Magic by level 1. The miscellaneous items, there's going to be a lot of them in here. So you've got like Horn of Storms, Air Mage level 5. Now remember, we had an Air Mage of level, like back in through here, to get the winged helmet. You needed to have an Air Mage level 4. That makes them into a level 5. You then come to your miscellaneous items and then cast this one at level 5. You then cast this one to get an Air Magic of +1, which makes the commander into a mage level 6. So you start off at 4 and get to 6 essentially. So these do cost a lot of gems to do this, but it's a good way to be able to then sort of start to boost things up. There's so many different things in through here. Astral and magic. That's just astral magic goes up a little bit. Again, this one only requires Earth and Astral at level 2. But this combination, I'm sort of put this at the back end of this particular episode because this is higher level. Like this is beyond beginner to be able to start planning ahead. But it is rewarding to do it. So I wanted to just sort of cover it with the magic items. So we've covered a lot in this episode. It's been a long episode, but there's been an awful lot to go through. I hope this helps. But this planning ahead with the boosting is really, really good. Like it's actually it does make the game. This is where the good players, not even the great players, but the good players do this religiously. Plan ahead as to what equipment will I need with my faction to boost the sorts of mages that I have to then get the most out of them. And you can find that again if you just go back across into the spell casting. So just go into research, for example, and then just right click, for example, on evocation, which is in through here. So if I press N when I'm in here, again, question mark, to see what we can actually then go and do. And just press escape. But if I just press N, these are the nature spells that I may be aiming for in this one through here. So nature level 3 to get the poison cloud, for example, the stream of life as an example in evocation. If I go back into alteration, these are all the nature spells in through here as well. So by planning ahead a little bit with your spells and your items and your pretender god and the different magical units that you have at your disposal for your faction, you really can mix and match incredibly to sort of see what's going on with different things. And this is where it is, once you start to pick a faction and figure out what they're good at, you just focus on those areas that they're good at. You don't go out of your way to try to go into areas like for us playing as Jotunheim. I'm not going to worry too much. Like if I go into, for example, evocation, and I just press E, which is the earth. I know I don't have earth, and earth's going to be hard. I'd have to bring in my pretender god with earth to be able to get hold of earth, unless I find somewhere in the wilds a way of actually getting earth. It's just good to have a bit of everything, but in this case, it's just not going to happen for me. So I wouldn't be focusing on what the earth spells are going to give me with any of these sorts of things. Like these are pretty much out of my reach. So, death, yeah, absolutely. We could look at the death spells because we know we're going to have a lot of that one. Glamour, we're going to have a bit of as well. So we can actually look at these. Do we need to boost Glamour? Do we need to go beyond Glamour 2, which we should be able to get fairly readily, to get to Glamour 3 and get these sorts of spells? We can't get fire, so that one's not going to happen. But we could certainly get Fire-Eyed Warriors if we needed it. I don't know what it does. But there's things like this where you do start to min-max in the game, but in a fun way, just with that planning. That's why preparing for a game of Dominions, if you're playing multiplayer in particular, you could spend an awful lot of time just planning the strategy of how you move forward, just with your items and spells, essentially. This is why I keep on saying that amongst the best factions to play is Ulm, because you just don't need it. The units are so damn good anyway, and all the commanders are so damn good. You don't need to be focused too much on those items because they're just great items. They're great units anyway. They don't need the magical buffs so much as the other factions. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful, just with the different sorts of weapons, armor, magic items, and how they all collide together. Just thinking ahead a little bit for the way you build your thugs and super combatants. I know we've covered an awful lot in this episode. I hope it has been helpful. Been nearly an hour. I'll leave it here. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe again. And not again if you've already done it, but I will ask again. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. By the way, I keep on forgetting these little things. I showed you in game how to sort of start to do that evaluation. It might be even easier to do it before you even get into the game. And so you can do it from this screen where you're choosing your god. If we just press the question mark, there's a few little things in here. So we can actually have a look at the bless effects. We've already covered that one through there, but we do actually have the I or the capital F. So view forgeable magic items. Other things that may be important to you here is also view the researchable spells. So S, F5 or capital C in through there as well. And so those in combination on this particular screen will then help you choose your pretender god. And also, as I did sort of show in maybe the last one, I forget when it actually was, when you have a look at the physical form of your pretender god, you can then start to plan. I'll show you and illustrate this. So this one will now go over the hour. But anyway, let's just go through it. So we're going to press I for items or capital F for forgeable items. So I, at least it looks nice and bright this time. Again, what boosters have we got? We can now see the different boosters. If we, let's just say we're going to focus a bit on the Thistle Mace, what's the chance of, actually no, the Thistle Mace was a bit too difficult, wasn't it? Let's go to death. Press O and have a look for death items. So this is a Bloodthorn, which is going to improve blood magic. I don't really want I prefer to have them in the lesser and greater magic items. Greater magic items in through here does boost death. I need to have a death mage level 2 in this instance. So we've already had a bit of a look at that one through there. If we think, okay, yeah, that would actually work. Elemental. Some of these elementals, so increases the magic skill in all the in the elemental paths of magic. So essentially fire, earth, water, and air. So all four of those get boosted. So that's, in this one requires a fire mage level 4, water mage level 4. Not going to happen for us. But these the sorts of things we may end up having. There's another staff of elemental mastery as well. Air and earth actually. So yeah, okay. I'm not sure which ones it actually does. Oh, here we go. Yeah, fire, air, earth and water. Okay, so this one's an air and earth mage to then be able to cast that one through there. These are new, the way that they've done those. But these are very powerful. It's going to take a long time to get up to those. Nothing in there, nothing in there. Helmets, nothing much in there for us. Maybe gossamer if we were sort of looking for it again. But so again, we can do it from in here to start to plan ahead. And that way what we can then do is come through, okay, well, let's find a fire mage and actually go and, this is a Skull of Fire, requires a fire mage level 1, death mage level 1 to then go and cast it. You get a fire mage boost of +1. So, okay, we don't need to have the fire mage level 4. At that point, actually very powerful. I wanted to keep it onto lesser and greater. So we'd need to be a fair way into the game before we actually got that one. So in terms of boosting fire, Armour of Souls, there's nothing much really until we get to the very powerful items. So really the first one is the Flame Helmet. So if we were going to be boosting, for example, fire, and we were playing Jotunheim, we would then go to the physical form, or we could either just do that or press the P key to be taken in here. Press the tab to see what they already start with. So we've got a fire and nature. This is Devies of the Sun. So that one would be a useful one to sort of get started with, but potentially if we wanted to do that one. We've got also like a fire dragon through here as well, which it starts off with 2 fire. And so if we wanted to, actually no, these ones can't use the helmet. Oh, you can still forge the helmet actually, so it can still forge it. It just can't wear the helmet. So it's not going to help us in this case. These can wear crowns, but not helmets. So, and I'll be talking about these in the next episode as well, actually, what these all mean and what they do and how they work. But in this case, probably our best shot really would be to maybe even get this guy here, this Archmage at 90 points. Bring him in. He's already starting with fire. We can boost that one up to 4, and we already got heaps of points left over to then start to then work other things if we needed to. Like we know that we don't have any fire with Jotunheim. We don't have any earth magic, so we could boost that as well. We've still got a lot of points. These guys, and again, I'll talk about this in the next episode as to why these can be useful. But this is actually a different sort of strategy. Or, you know, we forget about fire. We'll just cancel that one. But this is actually where we can then make use of different approaches, which is exponential, but I will be covering this in more detail. I just wanted to really show you that I will then open this one up, and then you can still use the same filters that we had before. Magic Path Boosting, which is really cool. That was never here before. Not that I ever saw it before. The national items, if I press tab, we're not going to sort of see them, I don't think. I don't think we have any for Jotunheim. Some of them do have them, but we don't actually have any national items. Oh, there we go. There's one there. The Dust Dagger is a national item. You can see when I do that one, but none of the others are actually sort of showing up as being national for us. So that one, at least we've got one that does highlight. Yeah, I thought there may have been miscellaneous. There's probably an opportunity bit there, but so this one here, national item for us, and so this item cost is reduced for Jotunheim. It's a single-handed weapon, so death and astral. We don't have any astral, so this is where you may want to go and get an astral, but this is actually a different type of dagger, so just basically an armor-negating dagger. Slim dagger made of darkened steel. It's crafted according to methods used by the Wolfkin of Jotun. It's unnaturally sharp, and anyone cut by its razor edges will bleed profusely. The blade's supernatural sharpness is also allows it to bypass any armor. So it is armor negating, and damage is special. So size 4 and 5 has a chance to negate. Size 6 always negates. Strength 15 plus chance has a chance to negate this as well. This is the draw blood aspect, and so that's what happens. Anyone wounded by this weapon will also be struck by this, and so they're going to be basically bleeding to death. So that's sort of like Dust Dagger, which again is unique to Jotunheim. So that sort of covers, I guess, the various items. I'll just press tab again, just so it doesn't sort of highlight. But there's a lot in this to do with weapons, armor, and magic items. I hope that's been helpful. I hope it's been not too onerous. I know it's been a long time. There will be an index down below. I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for watching.